It's live.
Great.
I think you do
Okay. Hello, Facebook Live audience. Thank you so much for viewing with us today. I have Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Kevin Brady, and I have our own Arizona Congressman, David Schweikert, here today to talk with me a little bit about some of the things happening in D.C. So first question, my name is Brandy for those who don't know, but we had an opportunity to meet just a few minutes ago. My first question is for Chairman Brady. Tell us about the passage of tax reform and why you're so excited about its potential impact on the national economy.
Well, we think for Arizona, for the rest of the country, Dave Schweikert and I, working with the president and our Senate Republicans as well, we've now delivered one of the most competitive tax codes in American history. Now our companies have a chance to compete and win anywhere in the world, including here at home. So we're already starting to see, higher wages, more jobs, dollars coming back to America, invested here in the United States, and optimism among Main Street businesses are at a 45-year high. So the early results are really strong. We think the best is yet to come because this is really designed to create a giant sucking sound of new jobs, new research, new manufacturing back to the United States. And Arizona, of course, is just a big leader in so many key industries.
It is a good bill. Thank you very much for your work on it, both of you. So your committee that you're both on actually has oversight over international trade agreements. What role, if any, does Congress have when it comes to this whole NAFTA renegotiation discussion?
A lot. Look, if you look at the U.S. Constitution, the fact of the matter is the House, and particularly the House Ways and Means Committee, is where spending and tax, particularly tax bills, begin. And trade is actually thought of as it's a revenue, it's a tax bill. So we're going to hopefully we've already had some influence in managing those things. We're both from border states, so there's a lot of areas we're greatly concerned with that are important to our state's economies. And I think it's going the right way. We'll know very shortly because we expect in about 6 weeks to really start to see some of the final documents starting to come together. So at least for myself, I'm quite hopeful.
Good. So tell me a little bit then, since we're on the trade topic, about the ISDS, the Investor-State Dispute Settlements.
Well, you're talking to the champion.
No, you should do it.
So we're talking to the champion here, Dave. Right? Dave.
What is it? Let's
Schweikert just led a major letter in Congress with 105 Republicans from the House and Senate to the White House, making the case that we think you'll negotiate a new modern NAFTA that's very important and good for America and our trading partners. But you have to make sure that our partners are held accountable and that we protect American investors who are competing in Mexico and Canada to protect them when they make those investments. Dave, why don't you talk about your letter and your point?
Well, let me give you a simple example. Let's say you're a life insurance company or some type of insurance, and you're offering insurance in another country. That's where the product is. That's where your customer base is. But what happens if you have a dispute at municipal or state or federal level? How do you want to actually have to go to look for a resolution in that country's court system? Or should you actually have an agreement where we're going to arbitrate under the standards that we built the trade agreement under? And what it makes it so you can do trade without a tremendous amount of political risk or even unintended risk that you may have not thought of, where someone is trying to change the rules or a court ruling here. But it levels the playing field, particularly for American businesses.
That seems like it makes a lot of sense. What kind of feedback have you been getting from your colleagues on this?
I actually think our members have been, and actually on both sides of the aisle, have actually been very good on this, because understanding if we're trying to build customer bases so we can sell things to people around the world, we need to be able to also protect those organizations, the capital that goes across our border, and make sure it's able to come back. And so I think there's sort of becoming a universal understanding in Congress that trade will not really work without this type of arbitration mechanisms.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So what do you think then, when we're on this trade topic, about the potential impact of this steel and aluminum tariffs?
So I think the president's right to go after China's overcapacity of steel and aluminum, and he's right to go after their theft of American intellectual property and American technologies that they force to be transferred. It costs our country tens of thousands of dollars. The challenge, though, for any president is how to do that without causing damage to our workers, our businesses, and our economy. So Congress has been working very closely, the House especially, Ways and Means Committee, on exempting countries from these tariffs, excluding products, from fairly traded products from these processes, and we push hard for a 30 to 45 day timetable for these new tariffs against China to give a chance for China and the U.S. to really have a conversation about how we address these issues. And so the President feels very strongly about tariffs as a key part of these discussions to level the playing field. The challenge is how to we want to make sure when China cheats, American workers and families don't get punished. We think there's a way to do that. We're going to keep working with the White House.
It's for those of us here in Arizona, particularly in the Tucson, Phoenix area. We make a lot of things. For aerospace, for technology, we do more what's referred to as the fabrication side. And at least at a personal level, I'm very concerned that certain types of specialty metals that may come from different places around the world that ultimately get their true value added in the machine shops around this community,
Right.
that we don't damage them, because you don't want the cascade effect where to deal with China's bad act of creating massive overcapacity ends up hurting the handful of specialty machine shops in my community, where
Right.
there's lots of workers and lots of families dependent on that fabrication.
Those supply chains are so interlinked.
Yeah, so it's an
complicated.
interesting balancing act of how do you deal with massive production here, but tens and tens of thousands of people in the fabrication business who are doing the value added.
Okay. Last question for you, because I know you got to run. You talked about this a little bit earlier. It's the de minimis issue. First, can you explain it a little bit for our Facebook
Let you
audience?
do it. You're the champion.
And then why does it
Go
matter
for
so
it.
much?
No.
De minimis is actually referred to as when a product comes in the United States or we send a product to another country, at what value do you hit before it has to go through a customs process?
Okay.
You know, certain types of documentation, certain types of chain of custody, all those things. Well, the United States actually has a fairly high, what we refer to as de minimis. It's $800 and some.
Right.
Other countries are sometimes down around $20, $25.
Wow.
So what it means is they can sell us a product $800, and it just moves through customs right to your doorstep. But we go the other direction, it stops and has to go through the customs services and has to maybe have additional paperwork and additional costs and other documentations. So what ends up happening is if you're saying we want fair trade, you actually have to get those de minimis where it hits the customs bureaucracies. You also have to put those in harmony. And that's one of my goals.
Now, is that difficult, or is there a specific, country or group of countries that it's more difficult with, or are you making progress on this issue? How hard is it to get that equivalency that you're looking for?
The answer is hard. Can Mexico have very small, very low levels? They feel like it protects their retail industry. We think it's about leveling the playing field, not just for those in Arizona who are making this, but for consumers in Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. as well. So in all these agreements, we really have two goals, which is one, turn one-way trade into America, and a two-way trade in other countries, and secondly, do it on a level playing field. The de minimis issue, the one that David's leading on, among others, really helps level that playing field.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman Schweikert, for your time always and your generosity with coming to visit the Arizona Chamber. And thank you so much for visiting us today and talking with us about this crucially important trade issue, especially for Arizona and Texas and the rest of the U.S. So good luck back in D.C. and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Really appreciate your time.